Welcome everyone. Today I want to introduce a new series of videos that I am developing and where I'll discuss about the effect of the light on form. I'm going to use as a reference my Basic Human Anatomy book, where I have various chapters where in addition to anatomy, I discuss, as you can see, plenty of anatomy here. I discuss also about drawing techniques. So light on form is something that we really need to understand if you want to draw accurately, create realistic effects, and not go crazy in trying to figure out why the things are copied, they don't come out the way we want them to come out. So today, I want to start with this. I'm going to start with drawing a cube. We're going to draw a cube, and no, I shouldn't do it. And I'm going to discuss about a concept, the concept of direct simultaneous contrast. So let's get busy. I'm going to use charcoal and chalk on tone paper. All right, let's see. Let's draw a cube. So I'm going to start by blocking in a cube, right? We block in first a few lines without making them too precise. And I think just to visualize our cube, where it's going to go, how big it's going to be. And maybe this is going to make it a little bit bigger, wider here. This, right? So now I want to think, just to follow the rule of intuitive perspective. I want this line, these two lines to converge to an infinite point here, right? These are going to be parallel, right? These two, right, had to converge to an infinite point, the same point where this goes, right? Same thing for this, right? These have to converge. We can make these parallel, but we can make all of them parallel, but let's sneak in some perspectival thinking here, right? All right, so now let's imagine that we have a light source, right, coming from here. This will be the light source, right? Like that, right? And the lights will hit this plane here directly, or at least the one that, this plane is the one that is hit by the light more directly and is closest to the light source. Therefore, this one here will be hit by the light, but not as directly, right? This instead is going to be in the shadow mass. So let's now draw this slightly more precisely, right? Not much, just a few lines here and there to just reinforce a few lines here and there. And then, remember to go there, right? And then we're going to start blocking in light and shadow. So we're seeing that this is the lightest plane, right? The plane with we have the lightest value. So I'm going to block in without really thinking of achieving a complete tonal rendering, just to mark the main area of values, what is lighter than the paper, what's the same as the paper, what's darker than the paper. So it's going to be darker than the paper, so I want to block in an area value here with my charcoal. Try to be even in the mark making. And as you can see, what I did is the first layer I went like this, right? Trying to keep the mark even in terms of pressure of the charcoal on the paper and distance between marks. When it came back up, instead of doing this, I just slightly change angle like this, right? So basically I would have two direction of the marks. So that they kind of, this way it fills in the mark fills in the area of the plane more even. And now we're gonna go with another layer like that, right? Some sort of cross-hatching, but I don't really want to see the cross-hatching here, right? Now we have the three values, right? Now, direct simultaneous contrast, right? What is this thing? So if I develop something tonal like this is fine. This is the way the light, the value present themselves on a form. But in real life, there are many variables, right? One is the appearance of things or physical phenomena that I couldn't explain to you, but we can see them, right? And one is this impression that one value here will look in this area here, this value here, in this area here, will appear to be lighter here because of the contrast with this, which is very dark. So what we want to do, we don't want to have an even value here like this. We want to have here, make a lighter value here. See that? And then gradually, as we move away from this value here that creates a contrast, we now we can go back to the even value like that, right? So now I'm going to try to draw sharper margin here. But this idea of contrast works for this area, but also for this area. Therefore, we need now to get charcoal and darken this area here that is in contact with the white plane, the light plane, right? All right, just here, right? I'm gonna make this darker. And as I move away, same thing that happened here. And these two are not next to each other. This simultaneous contrast is visible anymore. I don't know if this is there's some explanation in the physics of lights. I don't know. So I'm not gonna tell you speculation and theories, right? But that's the way the light behaves on the form. So we want to consider that, right? So now here, what happened here, see how more realistic it looks, right? Now here, between these two, we're gonna have the same thing. But from here to here, we have the extreme of the tonal range. Therefore, the contrast is gonna be very strong. The distance, the tonal distance, right, between these two is not as strong, as extreme, as what we have here. So, yes, we're going to have a similar contrast, but this area here of light value is not going to be as pronounced as this area here. So this area here, we may push this a little bit more, right? This area here is going to be slightly lighter, right? I'm going to take care not to create a sudden tonal path. So here I want it to be very smooth, a very smooth gradation, right? This is going to be lighter, right, than this, right, but not as light as that. So now, same thing here, right? You already know this. So now here, we're going to darken this, but not very much, a little bit, just a little bit, right? Let me use B, right? B, being harder is easier to with a harder charcoal, it's easier to create lighter values, right? Here like this, right? See that, right? So now, same thing applies to this area, these areas here. So now here, this will appear darker, but not as dark as this, which now I'm going to reinforce to show more clearly the difference, right, between these and these values, right? So this is gonna be a little bit darker. A little bit darker, but not as dark as that, right? And that's going to be a little bit lighter. So let's get white here. Just barely lighter, right? Just, you want to start with a very, very, very faint layer, right, of white, and there you go, right? Makes sense. So this is the direct simultaneous contrast. Now we want to add, let's keep developing this, right? I think this makes, this is an important, it's an important phenomenon to consider when we paint, whether we work in black and white or in color too, right? So this will affect the chroma and the value and the temperature or the colors too, right? So now let's see, we have now shadow mask here, right? We've got a cast shadow, right? I'm gonna block in a barbaric shadow here, just quickly done, right? So now this is gonna be dark, right? This is the cast shadow. You see how immediately, as I darken this, right? You see how this area here start looking lighter and lighter and lighter, the contrast, right? The more I darken this value, the lighter that will get. So now what I want to do, I want to, yeah, the light would be a reality like this, but I prefer to do it this way. It's clearer if I do it like this for what I have to do, right? So you saturate the paper. I'm gonna use the B, the 2B now, right? All right. So set this a little bit darker here. As the cast shadow moves away from the subject that produces it, it will be, the cast shadow will be softer and lighter at the margin here, at the edge, and here instead we're going to have a sharper edge here, right? And as we move out here, this is going to kind of soften up, right? Become a fuzzy edge here. Fuzzy edge here, right? And out, down like that, right? So now here. Now you see how that gets lighter and lighter, right? See if you can look at the difference now with this, right? Look. So that's clearly, well, maybe, I don't know if it's visible, but as this doesn't look as light as now when I show this contrast with the shadow mask, right? So it's a question of appearance, right? Values are affecting each other as they come in contact. We need to consider this, right? So now here, I'm going to darken it here more. So now, what we can do, so what is this? Well, this is the reflected light. So the light comes from here, bounces off in here, and then hits this area here. But also the contrast between this and this. So I could now here, if I want to, lift this a little bit, right? Just this corner here. Okay, like that, right? Now what I could also do, I could work on the background here, right? And the background here. Trying to make a gradation here, leave it as is here. We take off the light, so what I'm trying to do is try to have a dark area here, gradually gets lighter here, right? Just to play with it a little bit. Just to play with the varied possibility. We're making this up, right? So we could make up, once you understand how this works, right? You could make stuff up. You can draw these things out of your head, right? I want to see how this maybe gets here, right? There's a plane here, right? And this background. This background is dark and the table is light. Let's see, right? So you see how just a simple cube, if I give it the right light, it really creates interesting contrasts, interesting aesthetic, rhythmic, right, characteristics, right? So now this, in here, we could introduce another concept. Look, this is open form. See that? Let's assume that in this case here, the background value is the same value as that. So what happens is there is no, we lose the edge of the cube. But take Caravaggio now, right? Caravaggio would immerse his figures in an eternal night, right? His work has been described as nocturnal, right? And so this strong contrast between light and shadow creates interesting shapes, forms, challenges the integrity of the human body, right? Just with the light. So we could draw this cube. Imagine the light. It would be a great exercise, in fact, coming from a variety of directions. And we will obtain a different scene, different aesthetic, different, different possibilities in terms of light and form, but also, expressing different aspects, right, of the different possibilities of it. So, a little bit like Morandi, right? Like Morandi, George Morandi, that is, when he was rearranging those few bottles, same bottle, not few, but quite a few bottles, but the same bottle rearranged in a different composition would make a different painting, right? So we are rearranging the light here, right? See how interesting it could be, right? So now here, so as this is open form, right? This will become open form, and gradually here, because of the contrast, we have closed form, right? We kind of see again the margin, the side of the cube here, or here. Now this is very, very sharp, right? Very, very sharp. So here we could actually kind of have an in between, right? Where we lose this edge here, right? And we have the edge here discernible, but not super sharp, fuzzy, right? And instead here, we're gonna have a very, very sharp distinction between the background and the cube. We're playing with edges, right? We're playing with the integrity of the object, where here it's challenged, but here is asserted. And here is uncertain, right? Just like people, right? So now what we could do here, right? We could have these two the same value, but think of this. If the light comes from here, right? All right, this is the light hits this, not perpendicularly, but very directly. Here, the light is a little bit tangent. The light will hit this area here more directly. So I need to lighten this up a little bit. And maybe clean that, all right? So definitely all of this will be lighter than that because, again, this is more directly oriented toward the lights, right? Here's the passages, right, from one value to the next that you have to kind of reason your way through it a little bit. If you are copying this from copying from life is a different thing, but from imagination you're gonna reason your way through this. But this being said, even if you're copying this from life, you might miss these little details. What I'm showing you now is not just how to copy something without thinking. It's just understanding what you see, right? You want to understand why the light behaves this way. That way, when we look at the scene, copy still life, we are more informed. Our gaze is going to be more informed because we can expect to see certain things, right? And we're gonna see them. So we pick them, we see them. If some things, right, in this or in the human body when we study anatomy, some parts of the body, for example, are going to be so subtle, right? So barely visible that if you don't know they are there, you don't see them, right? In this case in here, it's the same thing with this slight variation in value, right? It's the light, it's not the anatomy, it's the light. But if you don't know these things, your drawing, right, the way you register what you see is going to be more limited. You're not going to see everything, right? So now we're going to try, I'm trying to create a little bit of a gradual passage from here, right, when I make it darker, to here, where it's going to get lighter, right? So this area here now, because it is against the dark background, so it might be a little bit lighter, right? Right? So I'm going to increase the contrast between this and the background, moving this side closer to me, right? So as I do this, as you can see, I can move the various planes by pushing them back or pulling them toward me, creating a more convincing sense of three dimension. All right, so try to do this a couple of times and maybe try to imagine the light coming from a different direction, like here, like here, like here, and see what happens, right? Just to study the light on the form. Okay.